Hello. Can anyone hear me? Oh, hey all. Sorry about that. I think there were some technical difficulties and our Zoom crashed.
Ah, that's what happened. Okay.
Okay, I'll just give a second.
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened there.
I think Zoom crashed.
Did that happen for everybody?
Mhm.
Everybody.
So yeah.
Okay. Okay. Sorry, everybody.
How do I transfer this back to you? Here you are.
Okay, I'm gonna start recording again.
Okay, thanks everyone for your understanding with difficulties. I am going to share my screen again. Did everyone catch where I left off? Okay. And can everyone see this?
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Okay, so I was just going to briefly mention that these recycling guides are really clear. They're available in many languages, and it's very clear about what can be recycled by category. So you can see all the different products. There's visual, there's the actual words, and then there's I just split this in two just to make it easy to see, but they're actually portrait pages. And then there's also plastic, metal, and glass here. And then, well, just as importantly, it also very clearly says what is not recyclable and what you should not be recycling. So that you should not be putting recyclables in bags, batteries, no food or liquid, no plastic bags, no frozen food boxes. And we'll go into that a little bit more. And I think Colin and Rachel will go into that when they're covering the RMA as well. All right. So now we get to the RMA portion of this presentation. So what the heck is the RMA? And at this point, I'll transfer this over to Colin and stop sharing.
Perfect. Thanks, Gabby. My name's Colin. I'm a regional specialist with Oregon DEQ based out of Bend. So I serve kind of the Highway 97 corridor counties for Eastern region, starting up in Hood River, working my way all the way down to Klamath Falls. Um, so Rachel is with me. I'll have her introduce herself here in a second. We're going to be talking about RMA at really kind of a 30,000 foot level. We could spend hours talking about RMA, so we're going to kind of try to give you the quick and easy version. So while we are presenting, there is a chat feature. If you have any questions for clarity, like on a particular slide, if something didn't make sense, please use that chat. Naomi or Covey will alert us to that. We'll try to answer it right then. But if you have any kind of more detailed questions, let's save those for the Q&A section. But I want to make sure if you have any clarifying questions while we're going through this that we talk about that. So let me go ahead and get my screen going here and see if you can all see. Um, Hopefully you can see my slide. Can I get a thumbs up? That's good. Okay, so I'll turn it over to Rachel and have Rachel introduce herself, and then I'll be back on here in a few minutes.
Thanks, Colin. My name is Rachel Van Wert, and Colin and I have spent hours, and if we add in the hours we've spent talking about RMA with Susan as well, it's a lot of hours, and we could probably go more. But I am the technical assistant for RMA for the Eastern region. So that means I work with 19 counties here in Oregon, and I'm based in Klamath Falls. Um, I'm a year into the DEQ, and I spent 8 years before that working with local governments. So lots of history on the RMA. And I hope as this rolls out for all of you that you start really seeing the wonderful benefits that we're hoping it will achieve. And I'll turn that back to Colin real quick.
Yeah, so a little more introduction. I've been with DEQ since July of last year. I actually came from the hauler side, so I kind of have a different perspective. I started working for a private hauler on the coast where I operated a garbage truck and a recycle truck, and then moved to Central Oregon where I worked for a local hauler and then joined the DEQ team. So yeah, real super excited about RMA. Hopefully, because RMA went into effect officially July 1, hopefully we're starting to see some of those changes within our communities. And I think once everybody starts seeing how good RMA is, you're going to be happy. So I'll let Rachel take the first few slides here, and then I'll come back and talk to you about the standardized list, the universal statewide collection list.
There you go. And Colin, how about I just give you a thumbs up when I need it to go to the next slide? Does that work? Yeah, look at that thumbs up. Okay, so we're going to go back in time a little bit to 2021. In 2021, the Oregon legislature, they passed Senate Bill 582, which is now officially the Plastic Pollution and Recycling Modernization Act. That is a big mouthful, even if you do an acronym. So it is known as the RMA. It actually did become law on January 1, 2022. But the official launch, the rollout that has happened throughout the state, started on July 1, 2025. And we like to say that it is a dial, not a switch, because while so many communities are excited about this, Oregon is a big state. So we're starting to see the effects now. And what the goal of the RMA is to really update our outdated recycling system. If you are an avid recycler, or if you're fairly new to it, you probably have experienced some challenges around recycling here in Oregon. But what we want to do is build this as a community program. We're leveraging these resources that producers are putting their products into Oregon, and it's an innovative system. We want it to work for everyone. We want it to be as good in Harney County as it is in the Portland metro area. So if you're in Bend or you're over there in La Pine, same thing. You're going to see the same kind of opportunities for your community. And I just realized, Colin, I talk with my hands, so I'm going to try not to do it unless I do that. um, so, like we said, what are the benefits? Well, we could go on for hours, but really what we're looking at is RMA is an EPR program and in a bigger scale. So if you're familiar with Pink Care or the Bottle Bill mattress recycling, this is kind of the Cadillac of producer responsibility. So what we do is we say, if you are bringing these materials into Oregon, we are asking you to pay into the system to help us recycle this product. And it's not a new concept, but it is something that is innovative in having a whole state. Other states have joined us, but innovative because we are thinking about this as a whole. It increases the access to recycling. So people who live in rural areas, people who work in places where they may have a bedroom community and lack of resources there, folks who live in multifamily, everyone is going to be able to have some type of access that is better than we had previously. One of the givens, obviously, it prevents plastic pollution. We are looking at how do we take items that are plastic that people are still using, and as we want to encourage people to rethink and reuse, when they're still holding that one plastic item, we want to have an item that can go somewhere and be processed responsibly. And the RMA, and we can talk about that a little later, is this is growing. This is not a static, dead, done document. This is a living document. And so it also is how we can take items that we find innovative homes for and slowly move them back into the recycling system. If you've moved around in Oregon a lot, you obviously know that before this, all the communities did it different. Why could we recycle something in Portland, but we couldn't recycle it in Coos Bay? Oh, RMA is actually the Recycling Modernization Act. So now we have a standard. We have a uniform statewide collection list, which means that curbside and depots will all collect the same thing across the state. Now, jurisdictions might be able to add other services, but not into their roll cart. The roll cart or the depot is for that uniformed list. And then our producer responsibility organizations, the PRO, also has some their own depots too. And what these are these harder to recycle materials, and those are coming into communities as well. But now if you, no matter where you live, you will know what to do with the item and where it goes. The piece that I really love is these producer fees are higher for non-recyclable products. This encourages better business. So there is an incentive for businesses to look at the packaging that they are putting into the system and they are putting into Oregon. And if it is not a recyclable material, they are paying that higher fee in the fee structure. So, you know, in corporate America, people are going to look to how can we do it better as part of our saving money. And then it creates that accountability to outcomes. So again, folks have had some distrust around the system of recycling. National Sword, if you've seen the pictures, you've seen things being shipped to other countries. What we have is a recyclable market and a responsible end market. So we know where things are going and things are being audited. And I missed that question. I'm sorry.
We can save that one for the Q&A.
Okay. And I'm going to do my little happy dance for Colin. Okay, so what are the notable changes? What are you guys going to see over there in Deschutes County or wherever else you're chiming in? Number one, you are going to see more convenient locations for depots, and that these depots will need to collect everything on the uniform statewide collection list. So if you have a permitted depot in your town, that used to just do maybe cardboard. Now, if you see what the items are on the UCL, they will be required to have all of those available at the depots. So for some folks, that is a better solution. Local governments and service providers, so haulers, or a reload facility must make sure that everything is commingled. Materials can't be commingled if they're not on the list. And provider and governments need to say that if you bring in new recycling carts, they have to have 10% post-consumer recycled content. Ding.
Perfect. Thank
Now,
you.
Colin.
Yeah, thank you, Rachel. So I'm gonna go through this kind of quickly, just for time's sake here. Rachel talked about the universal statewide collection list, also the local government acceptance list. So cities that are incorporated cities that are over 4,000 must collect en route at least monthly in at depots, paper, plastic, and metal. So the first slide you see here are paper. So what you see right here, the this is what's acceptable for your curbside roll cart. We had some questions. If you don't know if it's recyclable or not, it's better to place in the trash because we don't want to contaminate the stream, the recycling stream. You might see some new items on this list, and some familiar. So this is a DEQ created document. What you're going to see is like what Cubby showed earlier. Everybody in the state are going to be seeing the same type of educational material come out presented the same way to eliminate some of that confusion. Moving on to plastics. One of the biggest changes I think I see from where I came from is you're going to be able to put into your curbside roll cart the buckets and pails, storage containers into your roll cart. Now, we want to make sure that they're not so large that they get jammed in there and your recycle driver can't dump them. The other is nursery packaging and trays. Those are acceptable now in your curbside roll cart. The other plastics, pretty normal. We're used to seeing those go into our recycle roll cart already. Metal, your aluminum, tin, steel cans, those all can go in. We're all pretty used to that. The one big change is scrap metal. So scrap metal that is less than 10 pounds and less than 18 inches in length and that are not tanglers. So a tangler would be like a bicycle chain, wire, that type of thing. We don't want to put those in that gets hung up in the trucks and the sorting equipment. So there's some examples on here. Old baking pans, those can go in now. Dry, clean paint cans can now go in your curbside roll cart. So at your depots, motor oils accepted, and scrap metal that's over 10 pounds and 18 inches in length. So that's going to be your appliances, your dryers, your refrigerators. And then also all of the materials we saw in the previous slides, your paper, plastic, and metal can go to depots. So one of the big changes about RMA is the Producer Responsibility Organization, which is CAA, Circular Action Alliance. They're our pro. They're going to be setting up a network of pro recycling centers throughout the state for the more difficult items to recycle, which you're going to see your aluminum, pressed tin foil, the lids, like your butter container, your yogurts, shredded paper, stretchy plastic. So these are going to be set up throughout the state. Deschutes County is going to have a pro depot. So you'll be able to bring these items to the depot. Deschutes County, Bend, Redmond, and Sisters are going to retain their en route glass collection, but you can bring your glass to a pro depot. I see some questions coming in. I'll get them here in a second. Just a last reminder, RMA is a dial, it's not a light switch. We would love to be able to flip that light switch to light one and boom, our recycling infrastructure, education material, everything's good to go day one. It's not. You're going to see different parts of the state rolling out at different times because assets like garbage trucks and roll carts are having to be ordered. So it's a dial. We're dialing up, getting our infrastructure set up. And our next slide is questions. We'll be getting some questions here momentarily. Some resources. If you go to Oregon DEQ's website, there's a bunch of links that talk about RMA. And then the last slide here is Rachel's and my information. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. So I'll leave this up just momentarily, and then I'm going to bounce it back over to Covey, and then take a look at the questions in the chat, and I'll try to answer some questions.
Thanks, Colin. And Colin and Rachel, that contact information that you had up, are you okay if I share that with everyone in the email after this presentation?
Perfect.
Sure. Yep.
Okay. And then there were some questions about if this will be recorded. It will be recorded and shared. So yes, you'll have all this information later too. Thank you, Colin and Rachel. All right, we are going to move into the next part of this once I figure out how to share my screen again. Or actually, I don't need to share my screen for this. Actually, I do. Give me 1 second. Is
Debbie, are you okay if I answer the question about the depots?
Sure.
Like,
Well,
do this?
There you go.
Okay.
that would be great.
So I'm just looking at some of the chats. I'm Susan Baker with Deschutes County Solid Waste, and the depots are often also referred as our transfer stations. They're basically a drop-off recycling area. So our Northwest Transfer Station up in Sisters, the Sisters Recycle Center, Negus Transfer Station in Redmond, Southwest Transfer Station in Lapine, and Deschutes Recycling located here at Knott Landfill in Bend. Those are all termed depots, recycle drop-off centers, or transfer stations.
Thank you so much, Susan. Okay, I found my presentation. So thank you for your patience for that. And I am just going to present this again. All right, can everyone see that?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I'm really excited to now officially get into the panel side of this. So thank you again to Colin and Rachel for presenting on the RMA. And then thank you to all of our panelists today, our local experts on this. I'll first do the intros for each of them, and then we'll have a little bit of a moderated discussion, and then we'll get into the community Q&A. So first up, Susan, who just jumped in. Susan Baker is joining us. Susan is the Diversion and Franchise Services Manager for Deschutes County Solid Waste. So she's been in the waste and recycling industry for almost 20 years and is passionate about waste diversion, recognizing it's not just about recycling, it's about finding ways to prevent waste. During her time at Ben Garbage and Recycling, she helped roll out the commingled curbside and food waste collection programs within Deschutes County. So that's something we all benefit from. One of her main priorities now is working with DEQ on the new Recycling Modernization Act, updating recycling program collection materials accepted at the county drop-off centers, which you just talked about. Susan graduated from Western Washington University with a Bachelor of Arts in Marketing. I actually didn't know that. And she enjoys time with her family and friends, exploring the outdoors and traveling. Thank you, Susan, for joining us. Next up, we have Colin Team. Colin is the regional specialist for the material management program of DEQ, which is Department of Environmental Quality. Colin joined DEQ in July of 2024 as a regional specialist in materials management for the Eastern region. Prior to joining the DEQ team, Colin worked on the hauler side for many years, which he shared. He started as a residential ASL trash driver for several years, then promoted into a leadership role. One of his responsibilities was the community outreach for recycling and waste prevention. He launched several multi-tenant recycling pilot projects and implemented a food waste compost program for the local hospital. Colin acted as a local government liaison during the initial phase of RMA. When not working, Colin can be found grilling for family and friends on the Blackstone. I need to invite to that. Rachel Van Wert. Did I pronounce that right, Rachel? Okay. Rachel is a passionate advocate for sustainability, waste reduction, and community resilience. She currently serves as RMA technical advisor for the Eastern region within the Oregon DEQ, where she supports regional efforts to improve materials management and environmental outcomes. Before joining DEQ, Rachel spent 6 years with Marion County's Waste Reduction Team and the Marion Sustainable Business Network, helping businesses and residents adopt greener practices and reduce their environmental footprint. Her journey in reuse and repurposing began with a 16-year tenure at the Oregon Food Bank Network, where she played a pivotal role in developing the Fresh Alliance grocery donation program. Under her leadership, the program has successfully redirected over 75 million pounds of safe, usable food to individuals and families facing food insecurity across Oregon. Rachel lives in Klamath Falls with her husband and their beloved dogs. When she's not working to build a more sustainable future, she's likely tending to her garden, cultivating both plants and community. Thank you all for joining us. And I just wanted to read those. I know some of you shared a little bit about that too, but I just want to make sure like everyone in the audience kind of knows a little bit more about your background and gets to know you a little bit personally too. And hopefully there's some ways to build community from this as well. And if people have questions or things that they want to get your advice or feedback on, this can be a good way as well. So we'll switch over now to the moderated questions and panel discussion. And I think I'll stop sharing my screen for this. I think you all can see the people there. Okay, so my first question for all of you, I think especially based on my presentation, and this is something we here at the Rethink Waste Project, we do a lot of community education and outreach. And we definitely have a lot of people very interested in recycling, as we can see based on the turnout today. People are interested in learning about recycling. They want to do it right. But we also do get some people, especially based on reports with the last year about recycling and how really beneficial it is and if it really matters. And I just wanted to see if you can speak to that a little bit, if any of you can speak to that a little bit.
Sure. I can jump in a little here. I think what the benefit of recycling is, and we all know, definitely it's, the bottom part of the waste hierarchy, but it's still an important part. And for me, it has always been that is the ground floor to get people interested. Folks may not be able to go, okay, I want to sit down and I want to look at CO2 emissions, or I've seen 19 articles on solar panels and 5 of them are good and 5 of them are bad and the rest of them are kind of like, eh. But recycling is something tangible they can do. It's empowering. It's that first step, and it's something we can teach people to do well and build on that. So the folks that, their kids get excited about recycling, they get excited about it, then they're looking and then they're like, well, maybe if I'm buying a new deck, maybe I should look into the building material that's made from the recycled plastic bags instead of going to concrete, which we know is environmentally it's a big waste of energy. It's a big waste of resources. It's a waste of water, but it's necessary. But there are alternatives, and I think people getting that boost of confidence right there at the recycling, something they can do hands-on, easy. They can talk to their neighbors. They can talk to their kids about it. That is a great step, and it's something that we should always keep the excitement about because it will continue and we will find better ways to take these products and turn them into something so we have that closed loop system.
I'll just add a little bit from a work perspective. From that side, it conserves natural resources, but it also helps extend the life of our landfill, which Covey mentioned is estimated right now to be full by 2030. We've extended some time on it based on some waste reduction, which is great. From a personal standpoint, I like to see that the more I recycle or look at my waste prevention in general, but downsizing my trash has been really fun to achieve, to get down to a 35-gallon trash cart and look at having that collected every other week. And also just looking as consumers, we really do dictate those products out there. And if we're not purchasing these single use or these items that are not made of recyclable material, we are the voice. Producers will not package and put things on the shelf that cost a lot of money for that shelf space in the stores if they're not moving their products. So it's very empowering. It can get overwhelming to think about what one person can change out there. But I've always told somebody, if I did it, Colin did it, Rachel did it, Covey did it, now we've got a group of it, and we can actually see change out there, and that's very positive for me.
I love that. Thank you, both of you. Um, Okay, the other question, my next question, has to do with the RMA. So the Recycling Modernization Act. Thank you for that presentation. That was a lot of information. So I want to try and keep it really simple, in terms of if you had to say it in just like a line or a sentence or two or a couple key bullets, what's changing with the RMA from your kind of perspective? What's like the biggest thing? And also like what's the one thing you're most excited about?
Yeah, I'll jump in on there. What I'm personally most excited about. I shared with you that I started my garbage career and recycling career over on the coast, and one of my routes was in Rhodes End in Lincoln City, which Rhodes End in Lincoln City is like 100% vacation rentals. And so what I saw was people would come from throughout the state and they would put something in the recycle roll cart, but it was contamination. We couldn't accept it there. But they did back where their home's at, right? So the one thing that I was most excited about with the RMA is the universal statewide collection list because what is accepted in the roll cart and at the depots in Portland Metro is the same as in Medford and Ashland as it is in Bend, Lapine, Sisters, Redmond, and in Lincoln City. It just it makes it less confusing, right? So it's to me that's really exciting. And then being on the hauler side, there was a lot of distrust of, well, you're just throwing my recycling away. It's just going to the landfill. You know, I've heard those horror stories, and RMA creates responsible end markets, and so the transparency and the trust is going to be rebuilt within all the communities throughout Oregon that what you put in your curbside recycle roll cards is actually making it to an end market that's responsible and being recycled. So I'll make one point about the universal statewide collection list. What you see, that is just the foundation. More items are going to be added as the PRO CAA Circular Action Alliance vets products and finds a responsible end market. Those products will then be on ramp to be accepted into your roll cart.
And I'm going to piggyback on what Colin said about the responsible end markets. For me, that is completely empowering, not just for Oregonians, but it means that there is a higher level of accountability. We are not shipping our waste to impoverished countries. We are not making people sift through our own trash. And as Colin said, we can on-ramp items as we find responsible end markets. So our voice does count. If it's why isn't this item, you can pick kind of a bill, just pick it, tons of items out. But if it's why don't we do this? Because there's no responsible end market. As voices start to ask those questions over and over, our whole system is going to need to look for those responsible end markets, or these markets are going to need to change and grow with us. And that's important. And we have the voice because as we keep asking those questions, as Colin said, that gives us the opportunity to find these markets and move things onto the list. And it's really all about us having conversations with each other and our producers and our government entities. And it's a good thing.
Can I jump in there real quick, Susan, before you go? And I think I'm gonna try and approach this. I've been working in this field now for a little bit of time, and so when you say things like responsible end markets and producer responsibility organization, like I understand what you're saying, but how I think for people who might be still confused about what a responsible end market and what does that mean? Like,
Mhm.
can you give an example of that?
Sure. So, responsible end markets, number one, first and foremost, they are saying what they are doing what they are saying they are doing with the product. They're actually using it for recycling. They are not shipping it to other countries. They are not landfilling it. But more than that, we're also looking at those end markets themselves. What are their labor practices? Uh, what are their living wages? So this is more than just um, what they do when that, milk carton hits their facility. This is about how they operate responsibly, not just with the product, but with the community and their employees. And so that is a bigger piece that actually ties RMA into some environmental justice practices right away.
And so just to make sure I understood correctly, because I think this is something I'm still actually maybe not 100% clear on either, is so let's say I'm putting a ton of glass, right? Wine bottles outside to recycle. They then that glass goes through a process. Like, so if I put it in my curbside bin here, could one of you sh share the journey of what happens to that and when and what the responsible end market for that would be, if you're able to?
Uh, I mean, mine on a smaller scale, you guys would be better on this, but if you want to say glass, for instance, the processor taking that would have to go through kind of a vetting process of becoming a certified collector of that material. And in that themselves has parameters of like some of the things that Rachel touched on for them to be a certified. So right now our glass here goes to glass recycling in Portland. So glass to glass recycling would have to be an identified approved facility through the RMA. And so the glass would be collected, shipped direct there. So this is a little bit more easier one because it's a source separated item that's shipped direct to there. And they would be in their reporting practices have to show how much of that material was actually recycled. I believe there'll be percentage standards of what that level has to be. But like for more stuff that would be coming out of the commingle, like paper or something, that it went to a mill and how much of that was actually recovered and truly recycled. And any of these processing facilities have to be certified within RMA to begin with. If that's kind of a bigger scale, Colin, Rachel, correct?
Correct. And
Okay.
the other part of that, Susan, you're absolutely right, is it 2027, Colin? I might be a little furry on when. So, of course, they are vetted through the process now, but in 2027, the auditing processes will start, and there will be for our top 25 producers by volume in the state, there will be some additional auditing practices going through to make sure that we can really track the materials commingled or not throughout the entire process, and that it's a report that is accountable to the state.
That's helpful. Thank you for answering that. I know I was really digging deep there, but I just wanted to kind of like make it very visual and clear for folks, like when we're talking about this. And so, just to kind of finish that and make sure I understood correctly, is when all that glass is then taken, and I'm guessing it's broken and then kind of like turned into new glass, basically. That's that process, and this is making sure that that is actually what's happening with that glass. It's becoming basically recycled into some new glass that then is used again. Um, and I feel like I would be remiss if I don't make a quick plug, because I think when I think about glass, especially glass bottles, is like, we're breaking them, we're turning them back into new glass, which is great because it's reducing the natural resources for new glass from scratch. But there's still energy required in the processing of creating that. And so I know there's a startup by a friend of mine, Ravino, which is trying to do refillable wine glass bottles. And basically, again, giving that comparison of like, if we can get to our systems to reuse and refill, that's amazing. And in the meantime, recycling is really great. And I hope that's fair.
Absolutely.
Okay. Did you have anything else to add for that, Colin? Or are you okay if I go to the next question? Okay. Um, I guess I actually don't have many more questions for the moderator side. So I know we have a lot of questions on the community side, but is there any last words that you want to share, each of you, on this topic of recycling or RMA, or just something you want the audience to leave here today with?
If I could, for just on, we were talking about these additional recycling drop-off centers for what classifies as hard to recycle. items. First off, wanted to say that Deschutes County really wanted to be starting off with that July 1st implementation of expanding the recycling materials. And so most folks should have received updated recycle guides from their service providers. If you don't have those, you can reach out to them. They have them available on their websites for Republic Services or Cascade Disposal. So as Colin had mentioned, it's exciting for us because we did get new materials to add into there. But our other drop-off centers, which will be at our transfer stations, coming by next month, you'll hear some stuff about it probably in the media, and keep a lookout. Come to our Deschutes County website. But those hard to recycle items, including plastic lids, like from yogurt containers, sour cream containers, the rigid plastic package handles on 6-pack like beer containers, larger buckets and pails, plastic bags, shredded paper will all be available at our transfer stations to drop off as additional materials. They need to be dropped off and collected separately because they can't be successfully recovered through the commingle stream. But really exciting that by next month, we're going to be one of the, probably first 5 counties here in the state that are going to get these implemented. So really good news, and keep an ear out for more news on that.
Thank you, Susan. And I realized I think I skipped you for the RMA question about what you're most excited about. Did you want to add something for that?
Oh, you can. Mine's really quick, is just bringing in the producers part of this to have them buy into this system and help support it, and makes it more responsible for what you're packaging and making. You have to make it responsibly. So I'm excited for that part of it.
Thank you. And that actually reminded me of something else I did want to ask about that. I think the presentation that we got from Colin and Rachel touched upon it, but just that is something we hear a lot about too when we're talking about recycling in our education or outreach, is folks do mention that this is a way for the producers to shift the burden to consumers. And I know the RMA tries to shift that burden and have it be a shared responsibility model where producers are also responsible. Can you just, I know you shared like very detailed information on how it's doing that, but can you share that in very simple ways? How are producers being responsible for this? Are they having to pay? So I'd love to hear a little bit more about that.
Sure. So what happens is our producers that are bringing the paper and food serviceware into Oregon based on their volume of sales are paying into the system in a fee scale. Now, as the program grows, again, like I said, for incentives. So if a producer is switching from a hard to recycle product and are moving a more recyclable product or more into Oregon, then there is a change in the fee structure. And so what we said exactly, and this is also based again on sales volume. So if you're a large producer, let's say rhymes with mocha-ola, that you would obviously be putting more fees, paying more fees into the Oregon system, as opposed to a smaller, maybe niche producer. And there is actually a level, Colin, and I don't know if you remember it, at what point a smaller business would not be responsible for fees. And if anyone would love that answer to that question, just let me know and I will look it up and get it out to folks, what that threshold is.
I think it's a decent threshold. Like I had questions with very small business is nervous about what they were going to have to change, and they wouldn't be impacted into that program.
So I've been trying to answer some questions in the chat. If I didn't get to you, maybe just throw it again at the bottom of the chat.
Colin, you're multitasking. I don't even know how you're doing
I'm
it.
trying. I'm trying.
Well, there it is. 5 million.
Susan.
Yeah.
He's good
We
at
will now
it.
shift into community questions, so you don't have to try
Yeah.
and type in one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it'll be good to ask them out loud so everyone
Yep.
can answer too, so you don't have to try and keep up with the
Yeah.
chat.
Yeah. Susan, where can folks recycle old electronics?
Right. So for the Oregon eCycles program, TVs, laptops, your monitors, are all accepted for free. Peripherals like your cords or your mice are a very nominal fee, but you can recycle your e-waste items at Deschutes Recycling located out here at Knott Landfill for no charge. And we'll take them at the transfer stations that are covered under the e-waste program that don't require a fee. So you can take your TVs or your computer laptops, your desktop printers, and you can recycle those at our transfer stations, also in Lapine, Sisters, and Redmond.
Great.
Let me just add on that. Go to deschutes.org/SW for solid waste, and you can find a recycling link on there that'll let you know like what transfer stations accept what material.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you, Susan. So we did have a question. It looks like it may be hard to be a responsible end market. So there is a vetting process. They got to be certified by DEQ, and those CRPFs and end markets are going through that process now. DEQ has so many acronyms. So we used to know what a MRF was, a mixed recycling facility. With RMA, we have changed that. I did put it in an answer in the chat. It is a commingled recycling processing facility, a CRPF now. So MRF is no longer used. It's a CRPF. So that's going to be where your recyclables are being taken to be processed and sorted out into single items to then go off to the responsible end market.
Thanks, Colin. I feel like, yeah, I think there are a lot of acronyms and will definitely can be overwhelming for people who are not familiar with them. If everyone's okay, if the panel's okay here, I think we can move on to the community Q&A. And there will be, so we got a lot of questions from people when they were registering for this or people who emailed me. So we want to try and make some time for those that were asked in advance. So I'll go through some of those. And then if there's time, we'll also open it up at the end for some live questions as well. So hold on to your questions. And then we had a lot of questions. Many of them were just very specific materials questions. And I guess quick temperature check with the panel. Do you want to start with the materials kind of speed round of just like, is this material recyclable, or do you want to do a little bit more of the subjective questions? Are you okay with the materials questions, just recyclable or not? Let's just get those out of the way. There's a whole list. So the rules for the speed round are try and give a really quick answer. Keep it brief so we can get through all of them. And I'll just keep going rapid fire. Everyone ready? And any of the panelists can jump in and say yes, no.
Yes, no. Sorry.
Yes.
Up, down.
Yeah, you can all use it too. That works. You ready?
Yep.
All right. Are these materials recyclable? Milk carton containers.
Yes. No. Yes.
Plastic laundry containers.
Yes.
Yes.
Always have been. Tide. Yeah.
Plastic bags.
No, in your commingle recycling, but just on one of the chats, you can drop them off at the grocery stores. And then also those are going to be one of the materials collected at the drop-off centers at the transfer stations coming here by next month.
Woo! That was quick and concise. Thank you, Susan. Bubble wrap.
Colin, Rachel, I wasn't sure talk at all.
I'm answering questions in the chat.
I feel like this is
wrap.
the pizza box challenge. Currently not bubble wrap, even though people go, it's similar to cling film, but with the air pockets currently, no.
Okay.
But it's a wishful item that might move a little quicker from wishful to real down the road.
And that's a quick, good opportunity. This came up in the chat earlier too, but there are going to be some items that are not going to be recyclable, and that's okay. And when in doubt, throw it out. What we really don't want to do is do wishful recycling or wish cycling, where you put something in the recycling container because you really don't want to throw it out. It's still going to end up in a landfill if it's not recyclable, but you're just creating additional work and additional costs for the recycling process, which actually makes it less productive and helpful. So I just want to throw that out there that if there are items that you see that are not recyclable or if you don't know for sure, then it's better to throw it out. Okay, rigid plastic six-pan holsters. I think you mentioned this earlier, Susan.
Those will be part of the drop off, not in your commingle, but you can take them to the transfer stations here by next month and recycle those. Also, a lot of breweries will take them back as well.
Yes, and that's a question we get a lot too,
Mhm.
especially because many of those plastic six-pack holders have that big chasing arrow symbol that says it's recyclable.
Yeah.
And like you mentioned earlier, the material itself is recyclable, but it gets caught in the process of recycling right now. So wait until those
Yeah.
labels are there, or contact a brewery that will accept them.
Yeah.
Tinfoil.
Pro Depot.
Okay, so yeah,
Yeah.
tinfoil is a tough one. It's been collected in the commingle recycling cart since I can remember. What we came to find out is that really it gets sorted with the aluminum cans, and during the heating process breakdown of the aluminum cans, the foil just incinerates, and so it
Burns up.
technically is burned and does not get recycled. So we are wanting people to stop putting it in the recycle carts, but they can take it to the drop-off center. It's just one of those things where it was going in there like shredded paper, but truly wasn't being successfully recovered. So by doing them and collecting them separately and sending them straight to market for that processing, both shredded paper and aluminum foil can be recycled by coming to drop them off at our transfer stations. No charge.
Okay, that's actually news to me as well, so thank you. This is a really specific question. Plastic lid on a glass jar.
A plastic lid's going to have to come off the plastic jar.
Okay. And then can it be recycled after once it's off?
It's part
If
of
it,
a, if it's a plastic lid, sorry, Colin.
yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
That'll be part of our depot added materials of those plastic lids, as long as it's plastic. Yeah.
Got it. Clamshells.
As of right now, no.
All right. And I know some of these were covered earlier, so I'll just keep going through them quickly. Metal food can lids squashed into food cans. Now, does it have to be squashed into a food can?
Can be left partially on. I like to open my cans like 3/4 of the way, and as long as it still is attached. The reason why, if it's on its own, it's so thin that during the sorting process, it often gets included with paper and cardboard and then becomes problematic.
Awesome. Thank you. I had a very specific question, which is about milk, cream, juice, wax coated cartons. And then they also mentioned and aseptic containers like soup, broth, and soy milk and their plastic bottle caps.
So aseptic containers are now on the list. Again, you would want it to take their caps off, the plastic bottle cap. Same reason, and they are not at this time large enough to be going into the Pro Depot. When you think of lids for Pro Depot, you're start thinking like I think Colin said it best, start thinking cottage cheese size lids and up those bigger kind of lids.
And just to make sure, I think maybe I'm confused about this too. With the caps for and two things that I want to clarify. Aseptic containers is a very technical term. So I think food and beverage cartons, like we see for milk and juice and some of those
Mhm.
things, soy milk. So that's what we're talking about. And then if the caps are screwed on it after we empty it and rinse it and put the cap on, can the cap stay on? Right?
I was told that that cap is actually a different material, Colin,
Right.
when we were
Right.
Yeah.
talking with DEQ. So unfortunately, at this time, we would like those caps off of any of those cartons to be removed and thrown away.
Okay.
Off the cartons, yeah.
Yeah.
So when you were mentioning, Colin, about the caps, if it screws on, that's for like plastic bottles and other kinds of.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Like a 1 gallon milk jug or a shampoo bottle, stuff like that.
Or your
Those kind of caps.
Tide with the
Or
Tide
your
laundry
Tide.
detergent. Yeah, you can
Right.
keep
Those
that
kind of
cap on
caps.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the aseptic, because that's going into the paper side of the stream, not plastic, right?
Yeah,
So,
that makes sense. Okay, that's actually helpful. I just learned something new too. We got lightly plastic laminated mailed items. So I think they're talking about junk mail or like envelopes with those plastic windows. What happens to those?
Those have always been okay and accepted in your commingle recycling stream. So keep recycling those. It's very minimal plastic on that film. So
It
it
doesn't
gets,
matter if it's glossy.
no.
Nope.
Okay, this is the one I think that people often find surprising. Frozen and refrigerated cardboard food packaging. So things for like frozen pizzas or frozen meals of any kind. That's cardboard, right? That's
Right.
recyclable?
Right. So the easiest way is no packaging that is meant for refrigeration or the freezer. So your frozen pizza boxes, your enchilada boxes, um, or your butter that like the sticks of butter, those packaging that you put into your refrigerator. Unfortunately, what those are made out of gums up the system because there's stuff in it to keep it from absorbing the moisture and getting soggy. I think I hope hopefully I explained that right.
Yeah, like it just won't break up during the pulping process at a mill,
Right.
where the aseptic or the milk and beverage cartons, food and beverage cartons, that are classified as aseptic. Those just have like a plastic layer on them, but they do when they're pulped, they'll separate out for the
Right.
paper. But what Colin's talking about is it's like a wet strength material that it is, and it just does not, it's meant to withhold liquid. So when it's pulped, it doesn't break down, so they can't extract the material from it. That's why it's a
Right.
no.
I love that. Such a technical answer. Thank you. And that's one of the things that I was most surprised about when I saw on the list when I started working in this role. And I was just like, isn't that just cardboard? And I think
I
it's
thought
I've
so
never heard
too.
about.
Me too.
So I think that's one that most people are not aware of. So I want to make sure
Yeah.
that's something we touch
I
upon.
was recycling it for a really long time till I started working at the company and went, oops.
Me too. I'm glad I'm not the only one.
My son still calls me from college and holds things up that are um go in the freezer and he goes, "Are you sure?" And I go, "Oh, I'm sure." And he puts it. So
Yeah.
Okay, we have last two materials and then we have some other questions I want to cover too. So we had someone ask specifically lids on plastic tubs that are not screw on, like yogurt containers, the ones that go right on.
So those will be allowed now at as a drop-off material. Those are classified as the hard to recycle, and they can be collected source separated at the transfer stations beginning next month.
Thank you, Susan. I know I'm making you repeat that a lot of times.
No, it's
Hopefully
good.
people
No,
are
nope,
excited to
it's
hear
great.
about these drop-off centers
Oh,
because
we're excited too. Yeah,
they're going to accept a lot
absolutely.
of material.
Yeah.
Until then, until now, that was not accepted, right?
Exactly. I mean, it was still recyclable, but again, it's so thin, and during the commingled process, and when you try to extract that material, they would get caught up with the paper products. So this is fantastic that we can start collecting them.
That's great. And I think the last one for the materials, which I'm actually not sure what it means, but clear plastic household food containers.
well,
I
mm.
think
So
those are
I'm
clamshells.
Yeah.
yeah. Or if it's your old gosh, I can't even think of the brand
Tupperware?
brand now. Tupperware or those Ziploc, food storage containers.
Yeah, yeah.
No, right now they would just need to go to the curb, not recycled.
And I think sometimes people are like, what the heck is a clamshell? They're everywhere. I mean, they're absolutely everywhere, but they're your lettuce packaging, your berry packaging, everything at Costco's in a clamshell in their produce section. They feel like they're still a hard plastic, but they unfortunately fall under that clamshell family, and they're a no for now.
Okay. And I just want to give a shout out to Naomi and I think at Colin at times too, because they're handling the chat. And I know there's a lot of questions coming there. We really want to try and direct them directly in this conversation so you all can answer them without being distracted. So we'll wrap up some more questions here and then we'll open it up for live questions. Okay. I do have a few other questions that we received in advance. So the first one is, what happens with all of the yard waste, and does it make sense to compost food waste into the yard debris? I'll ask that first, and then there's a
Okay. So any of the yard debris and food waste that's collected in the curbside recycling program that residents may be signed up with, Cascade Disposal and Republic Services, and any businesses that compost their food waste, all those materials that are collected come out here to Deschutes Recycling that's located at Knott Landfill, and it is made into, processed into compost, and they sell that material as an end product as a nutrient-rich soil. So it is coming here to Bend, even if it's collected in Sisters Curbside Program, it's brought here to the composting facility in Bend. It's a subscription service in Bend and Redmond in the city limits right now. I think that as subscriptions continue to grow, there'll probably be a tipping point where they'll look at considering maybe it becoming a universal program. So when you sign up for your service, you'll get your recycling and your yard debris food waste cart. But to turn it into a universal program will require capital investment from the service providers and additional trucks and carts, and it does affect the ratepayer. So it's just kind of trying to find that sweet spot where it's not cost prohibitive as a universal, and right now as a subscription where people can participate. And a lot of people like to still home compost, but I eventually think it's a very popular program that continues to grow, that it will eventually probably become a universal program.
Thank you, Susan. And I might have gotten a little distracted with some of the comments in the chat. So I just want to kind of like reinstate that for people because we actually had this come up at a different event yesterday as a question too. So just to clarify, we do have curbside yard waste and composting right now in the city limits of Bend, Redmond, and Sisters. It's not available outside of the city limits of those three cities right now. And within those city limits, you have to sign up for it as yard debris collection, which is an additional $5 or $6 a month, I believe, depending again on your collection. But for most folks, that's what it is. And part of that yard waste right now is called yard debris, but that accepts all food waste as part of it. Is that an accurate summary?
Yeah, the
Okay.
only change about that is the City of Sisters does have a universal program. So when customers sign up for their service, they don't have glass. So Bend and Redmond have glass, Sisters doesn't. So Sisters has they get that as part of their service. And food waste is very important to put into the product. We're very carbon heavy here in Deschutes County, so that nitrogen from the food waste really helps balance out the composting end product process and everything. So put in all your food scraps, not just your vegetative, but your bread, your meat scraps, any and all food waste, your pumpkins from Halloween. Yeah.
Thank you. And yes, that is something that I think a lot of people still don't realize that. So we're really working on getting that messaging and that education out there. I also want to make a quick plug, alluding to what I mentioned previously about action at all levels and the advocacy side of it. I also want to just briefly mention that at the statewide level, we're supporting a bill that would require all large food waste generators, including restaurants and food service businesses, to have to compost statewide. And it would start in like 2029, I think, at this point, or 2020, 30. So it gives enough time for a system to kind of build out. But especially thinking about scale of food waste, those restaurants and food service businesses, are hundreds, if not thousands of times of a typical household. So that's the kind of thing where we can do things at a local level. We can also support things at the statewide and regional level as well to create that change.
Yeah, that's a great point. Right now it's left with the local municipalities, and like places like Portland, I believe, is one that requires commercial businesses to compost their food waste. So coming from a state level will be a really nice, I think, coming from the state for a program like this.
Yeah, and just to kind of close that circle, that's something we supported this last session. It came up as a bill. We provided testimony on it and we tried to do some advocacy on it. And unfortunately, the session ran out of time. It didn't pass this session, but they are planning to run it again next session. So if you're on our email list or if you're not already signed up for our emails, you will receive action alerts and just opportunities to advocate for that as well and to sign and let your legislators and senators know as well. So I just wanted to make a plug for that. That's another way to take action on this as well is do what you can and also help with collective effort as well. Okay, I think we got this question a lot in the comments. I think you touched upon a little bit earlier, but this is something we hear a lot about. And it's kind of like there's a couple different ways to put this question, but this question is put this year is that what are the panelists' thoughts on plastic recycling options such as Ridwell? And it could also be Ridvel or it could be Recycle Plus, which our waste collectors offers. So it's basically hard to recycle items. And how has plastic recycling landed on private citizens versus corporations and businesses? So kind of tied together.
Well, and
Okay, go ahead, Rachel.
of I think, first of all, what we're seeing with the producers paying into this system is really looking at shifting some of that burden just off of citizens, that shared responsibility model. And there are, we have our universal statewide collection list depots. We have our pro depots. There are places that take other hard to recycle items because they have found a market for it, which those markets may or may not be responsible end markets, or they may or may not take things based on volume. But it's always good when you're looking at a service, look at what you don't have or what's not, available for you. If you're not a shopper at Safeway, maybe, it doesn't make sense for you to gather all your cling plastic and your plastic bags and make just a trip to Safeway. There are, maybe you are going through a lot of your crafter, you have a lot of fabric scraps. That is a very hard to recycle item in a big system, but you have someone that does that. So it's really for folks to look at what fits them better. I know for some of the Recycle Plus and some of this subscription services for folks, especially if they don't have a car, they don't have great access to other transportation, they're elderly, they don't aren't able to get out a lot, this is not part of their route, then that's something they need to look into. I would always say that no matter what kind of service you use, you ask the questions about what's happening to that product. And most of the subscription-based services, put out some kind of statement at least once a year on where things are going, how much they've recycled. So it's just about being a smart consumer, doing the research on who your recycling service is, whether it's your hauler or a subscription service, just like you would research, I'm going to go buy a car, I'm going to do some research on that. I'm going to go buy this product, research on that. Just really do the research. And if it's something that interests you and you're not feeling like, wow, I have a good answer on that, reach out to those contact people. Any group that is wanting to do for the better is going to be able to give you a clear answer. So, and the more we talk about hard to recycle items, the more the markets, those, CRPFs or, MRFs or companies are going to change their technology. The more we ask for these items to be recycled, the more they are going to look at, we have to have our technology catch up. And that's sometimes the biggest challenge is how does the technology process these materials correctly and efficiently?
Did you want to add anything to that, Susan?
That was very well said. My only addition on that was when Rachel was referring to like the MRFs, which are the material recovery facilities that are collecting the commingled material and sorting it. That as part of the RMA, which is the Plastic Pollution and Recycling Modernization Act. Part of this is addressing this whole issue with the plastics, and as these producers have to pay into the systems, part of that is for system upgrades for these processing facilities, like she said, that are going to have to be able to have technology that can successfully sort and handle this material that gets added into the recycling stream. And then, of course, running through them, they're regulated for auditing and for finding responsible end markets for those hard to recycle materials.
Thank you, both of you. I just want to do a quick pause to kind of reflect on that I'm working in this space and even even then, there's just so much information that like I feel like my brain's getting really tired. And it's like difficult for me to understand some of these things. And I think part of that is I feel like we've created some of these systems with the materials we're using that is creating a lot more complexity than, if you look back many decades ago, where we didn't have so much plastic and everything, or we didn't have so many hard to recycle materials in the first place. And we also in many cases had a lot of refill and reuse and things that we kept going for a long time. We didn't have to recycle so much. So I just want to kind of like at least mention and note that piece as well. I also feel like I didn't do as good a job for folks who are not as familiar with what hard to recycle items are. It's like the name states, they're just items. Like I know, I think Ridwell, they have like candy wrappers and wrappers that they're able to collect. Some of them currently Recycle Plus programs are collecting textiles and also I think some kinds of plastic films and things like that as well. And my colleague Naomi actually did a little bit of a deep dive in a study and did a blog post on this that I just want to share as well. It's on our website, rethinkwasteproject.org. So if people are really curious about it, I think my end thing as a nonprofit at least is it's a nuanced thing. I think there can be some good. What I don't want people to take away is that, oh, this is a solution and that basically everything's fine. I can keep creating a lot of trash because it's getting recycled now. It can be a good kind of maybe stopgap measure. But I think really getting our systems to shift to reduce and reuse and refill where possible, or having it be more easily recyclable is a better solution. And I also, when Ridwell came last year, I went to the presentation, and one of the things I also shared is I hope this doesn't create another thing where consumers are now responsible for it. I really hope producers still take that step to change their packaging so that it's easily recyclable instead of consumers now having to either pay for a service or do extra work to recycle these things. So I just want to kind of like leave that with the audience too, if they're feeling the same, hearing a lot of this information. Uh, are you all okay for a couple more questions? Feeling good? Okay. This one I like. It's a little bit change of pace. So and it might be hard to answer, but where is plastic being recycled? I heard it used to all be shipped to China and hope there is a more environmentally friendly location now. And I know one of you had mentioned the China's forward policy kind of briefly in a presentation, just in a passing remark. It would be good to get a little bit more clarity on that, maybe as part of this, because there were a lot of reports that all of our recycling was being shipped to China and that they stopped accepting it. And then basically, I think there's a lot of confusion about what's happening with that.
Yeah, I can give that a quick little go, and then maybe others can add on. So when in 2018 with the China sword issue, what was happening is they were taking our recycling, and one, it was really dirty. We had a lot of contaminants in it. But what they were doing is they were taking that recycling and they were only pulling out portions of that recycling of what was the most valuable to them. And so, yes, a lot of it was being landfilled, and we've all seen those horrible pictures of super young kids going through those debris fields and stuff like that. But really, it just we were sending such dirty recycling to them. It just wasn't cost effective for them anymore because they were having so much trash in that, right? So that is also why we're stressing, no contamination. When in doubt, throw it out. So part of RMA is again those responsible end markets. So they're being vetted by DEQ, and part of that process is not just are they actually taking the recyclables and recycling it. As Rachel mentioned, they're looking at what the environmental impact is to the local community, to the workers, health and safety. They're looking at it very holistically in the big picture, right? And if they can't meet all those stringent requirements, they're not a responsible end market, and we cannot send our stuff to them. So it's really they're looking at big entire picture to make sure that it's being recycled, but all the other environmental things are being met too. So, anybody, please jump in and add on to that.
Well, that's great. And also, yeah, no materials going to China anymore at
No,
all. Yeah.
no.
Thank you. Let's see. I just want to see if I can. I'll ask this. I think this was asked in the chat. I don't know if you already got this, but Colin, but it was about why hasn't recycling pickup been reinstated on Crooked River Ranch?
Yeah, I can talk to that. So DEQ only regulates cities, incorporated cities that are of a population of 4,000 or more. So, like Redmond, Bend, exceed that threshold. So DEQ regulates says you have to offer curbside recycling in a certain size container picked up at least once a month. The opportunity has to be there, right? So for unincorporated areas such as Crooked River Ranch, it would be up to the service provider to provide that service. They're not required by law to provide it. It would be up to them individually to do that. So a perfect example is City of Sisters. They have a population under 4,000. So DEQ does not regulate them and tell them they have to have it. However, I would imagine the citizens probably went to their city council and said, we really want this. They went to their service provider, said, we really want this. And they have curbside collection in the City of Sisters, right? So I would encourage you because I would love to have 6,000 more residents in Crooked River getting curbside recycling and recycling. It would be amazing. So I would encourage you to talk to county commissioners, talk to the service provider that's providing the trash collection out there, and see if you can get that. But really, DEQ has no authority there to to require curbside recycling.
Thanks, Colin.
Colin, sorry, Cubby. Colin, can you look at the last question on there as far as on the no materials? I'm just
Oh,
aware for Oregon. I think it's a national shift, but I don't know if I could speak to that. That nowhere in the
I
country are they sending. I don't
I
believe they
I
are,
don't believe so.
but
I don't
I'm not
believe that.
100% sure on that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I
Um,
don't think China is still even open to those conversations. There are
Yeah.
still shipping containers from 2018 in a no man's land in docks um, all over Malaysia, all over China. They just, nobody's taking them back, nobody's moving them in.
I Yeah, and I really appreciate you raising that point, Rachel, because I feel like I started this, this whole event with a presentation that was all about how we're really trying to also get people to see the upstream impacts. But that's a really good reminder of also there are very real downstream impacts. And we do, we're fortunate, we're privileged, we have a very orderly process. It still goes to the landfill, but it's not polluting to that level, our natural resources. But also when we do offload things like we did for a long time to other countries and offshore, and I think we still do to some degree with our textiles and things like that, it does have a lot of direct impacts to people. So the downstream is also important. And so I hope people get a balance beyond that from coming to this event. I do want to be respectful with the time. We still, thanks to our panelists, if they're still willing to hang out for another 15 minutes, we'll just answer some more questions. But for people who do have to leave, I want to make sure we can end on time. And so I want to say thank you to all of our panelists for coming and taking
For
all
having
the
us.
time. Yeah, especially on an evening. So I appreciate you taking time to join us. I want to end with this quick little shout out for a repair cafe. I mentioned that earlier in the presentation. Our next one is on Monday, January 12th. So if you haven't been to one after hearing this presentation, if you're really feeling encouraged or just inspired that you also want to do something and repair something, start keeping an eye out for something that's not working around your house, put it to the side, and when time comes, bring it to Repair Cafe, get it fixed for free. It's really a great event. It's very community building, and it leaves you pretty optimistic because you leave the event saying, oh, I saved something from landfill, I saved from buying something new, and I'm creating that culture shift that we want to see here in the community. So that's the last thing I want to leave people with. I will put this final slide with my details as well. You should have gotten an email from me. I'll also send a follow-up email to everybody. And then for folks who are able to stick around, we'll answer a couple more questions. But otherwise, you're welcome to leave. Thank you for coming.
Covey, can I do one of the questions that we talked about earlier that was on
Please.
the plastic bags?
Yes, I skipped that one. Please do.
Yeah, so there was a question about updates regarding the disposal of plastic bags and with the plastic bag ban that came into place and those reusable thicker plastic grocery bags, why they're still being able to use. Those got allowed in as a reuse because of the thicker plastic, but Oregon just expanded its plastic bag ban to include all plastic bags at checkout. So beginning January 1st of 2027, it will eliminate the thicker reusable plastic bags. So I think that's great news. There'll still be some plastic that's still allowed with the produce bags for raw meat and I think for bulk, but those heavy duty plastic bags come January 1st, 2027 are going to be part of the plastic bag ban.
And that's great to hear. Thanks for getting that question, Susan. And I'm not going to miss a chance to also mention. So you'll probably see more paper bags now. You'll still have to pay
Yeah,
a
yep.
deposit. And so if you're
Reuse.
able to bring a reusable bag, it took me the longest time to get in the habit of leaving my keys with them or leaving them at the door and just putting them in my car. And then it took me even longer to then remember walking to the grocery store to get them from my car. I always remembered once I was checking out. So now I finally got in the habit. It can take some time, but those things add up and you save a lot of money too now. So. Uh,
Um, Colin, really quickly in the chat, will you just do acronym definitions for me? So let me just do PRPF equals MRF equals CAA for everybody who goes back to this, because they're just like back of hand language for us, but a lot of folks, that's a lot of acronyms. Thank you.
Colin's going to be typing for a while,
Yeah,
so
appreciate it, Colin. Thank you.
I
Okay.
had two more questions asked in advance, so I'll ask them real quick. Let's keep it really brief, and then we can open it up to any live questions for people who've hung around for this. So one was just how much should I clean off food encrusted recyclables regarding tap water use?
so it used to be for folks. I used to work with master recyclers, and I would have people scrubbing out every inch because it was kind of that, it has to be squeaky clean. Now, the technology is getting better. That does not mean take your half empty jar of peanut butter and toss that in the recyclables. But as if they're clean, you don't need to be scrubbing them out. Uh, Definitely, but look at I always kind of do with my kid. Does that really look like something that would be in a recyclable bin, or does that look like something that you would throw in the trash if it was not recyclable? So, if you have your mayo jar and the mayo went rancid, please don't throw your half-empty mayo jar into the container. Part of that too is around how things are processed. And I also want to do a pitch for food waste because that is definitely my passion. Um, it is better to worry about getting your yogurt eaten than worried about where your yogurt container goes. Not that your yogurt container is not important in the whole stream, but the food waste sitting in landfills and the methane that it produces is actually a higher level of damage. So I always tell people, if this is something that your family eats and you're like, I am not, trying to figure out how to get a starter and make my own yogurt and get glass containers and do all of that, great. But make sure everyone eats the yogurt before you worry about the recycling end of it, kind of that whole life cycle of your yogurt. Eat your yogurt first. Don't throw out a half empty pitch. I don't know for county, for Deschutes, I'm going to turn it over to Season, if you guys have any specifics on your food. But you do have your food waste for composting too, so that may be
Yeah.
a better option.
And I mean, Susan, if you want to add anything, feel free. I also wanted to add a little bit on that.
Oh, I like the chat. Your dog can clean out your yogurt. I love it.
There you go.
That's great. Colin had a great example. Sometimes, like if you're going to be running your dishwasher, if you want to put your peanut butter jar in there. For me, I find like I'm using more water to clean out my peanut butter jar. Unfortunately, I choose to throw it away instead because it's not a lot. But
Susan, that was my concern, and my wife and I had that conversation. But that recommendation was, well, if you're already running your dishwasher and you got a spot on your top rack, throw it in there. You're already running the water
Mhm.
anyway. So I thought that was a really great suggestion, and I just got that suggestion here a couple weeks ago from another regional specialist. So,
And
yeah.
I also want to just quickly add on that, at least what I heard at the event we had last year, where we also had a panel. I think Tim Brownell from Deschutes County Solid Waste also shared, and I think he shared this a couple times now. Is the clean spatula rule that basically if
Yeah.
you're able to put it in a container and it's coming out clean and there's not like a lot of food part like in there, that's okay. You don't have to be scrubbing it. You don't have to be perfect clean. What he mentioned was just has to be cleanish. So as long as there's not a lot of food, in there, like items, actual material in there, then it's still recyclable. And I think especially that's something we use when talking about pizza boxes, because I know for a while there was a lot of concern about the grease, and I just want to share for everyone that it's okay. Some level of grease is okay. You don't want any items in there. You want them to be empty. You don't want any liners. You don't want, lots of cheese or anything or actual crusts. But as long as they're empty and they're cleanish and there's some grease, that's okay. You can still recycle them. So I just want to share that as well. So the goal is cleanish, empty but cleanish, but not, spotless clean. Um,
And on the pizza boxes, I would say a good rule of thumb. This is again, teenage teenagers. They're like my little guinea pigs sometimes. If you can take a fork and get a fork full of toppings off your pizza box, you don't want to throw your fork, all of those toppings in. But like you said, if it's grease, maybe a little weird string of cheese hanging out. But yes, if you can put it on a chip or feed it um, to somebody, you know, then that's really not going to be clean enough. That's when you start getting some rot and waste that causes other problems.
I appreciate that.
Um,
Yeah.
Hey, Colin, did you see that one about the recyclables shipped to Portland? I know we were talking about that earlier today. I know you don't have numbers, but do you have any comment on that? I
I
mean, no, it's not all going to Portland, but
No, several CRPFs are located up in Portland metro area, Salem, Eugene, and is that the furthest south? Rachel is Eugene. So
I,
there is no
yeah.
CRPFs east of the Cascades.
Mhm.
So it's going to be the I-5 corridor. So Salem, Eugene, Portland Metro.
And we
Or
are working on, we do have uh, a facility in Walla Walla that is currently working with our team. Um, but that has not been finalized yet. So they are going through the process of working on being accepted. Uh, but currently not.
Okay. And I want to open it up, I think, for the last 5 minutes at least, to any other questions. I know many people have asked them in chat. So if there are any questions, if any of you see them and you want to answer them, let's try and just do really quick answers, like a minute. And if you want to hop on and ask a question, keep it to 30 seconds. And if we're not getting new ones, we can answer some of the ones that I'm seeing in chat, just out loud. So there's one about why are pizza boxes recyclable now when they didn't used to be, change in material. I can speak a little bit to that just because I looked at there's like a deep study that they did about what percent of grease is allowable. And they found that it's like around 10 to 20% by weight. So it's really high. And so I think that for a long time, my understanding is there was concern about that impacting the paper. And as I'm saying this, I want to make sure I can check with the experts to make sure that's all accurate.
I think
yeah,
Colin is a good one on this one.
yeah, yeah. So I actually had this conversation with Peter Spendolo, and some of you might recognize the name. He's been around. He's like a DEQ legend when it comes to this stuff. Like, absolutely, I feel privileged when I get to talk to him. And I brought up the pizza box statement, and he said, no, no, no. Pizza boxes have always been accepted in our recycling. He explained that back in the day, like in the 90s, early 2000s, a local government promoted that they were not recyclable, and it stuck. And then us being creatures of habit, we just kind of went with the flow, and we all just kind of accepted that they were not recyclable. They have always been recyclable. So that was news to me, because I grew up thinking they were not.
For the metal can lids, again, I know we talked about it earlier, but you can pinch them inside the metal can, but you don't have to. For me, I will just open my can 3/4 of the way so it still stays attached, and I've been doing it that way as well. You just don't want the metal lid to be all on its own, because it probably won't get recovered successfully. And yes, all of our commingle material is it's baled here in Deschutes County, and it is shipped out to a recycling processing facility that is not here in Deschutes, Crook, or Jefferson County.
I'm also just going, can I just say, I'm just going through this chat and there's so much.
Yeah.
Uh,
The question on the so much misinformation and recycling, I don't know if you guys want to comment on that, but we understand that. And that's one of the whole reasons for the Recycling Modernization Act, is to have this unified statewide list of materials that have been known to have markets for recyclability, and really trying to stop this wishful recycling where things really don't get recycled, and then it adds to this misinformation. So simplifying is what one of the goals of RMA is trying to do, but it can get very confusing out there.
And I think you said that perfectly, Susan.
Yeah, thank you. I also love the Christie's comment about we need jobs here in Central Oregon. Can't the recycling center be open here? And I feel like that came up last year, and there was some talk about potentially that happening since with the RMA, since
Yeah.
all of Eastern Oregon will need a center, and we could be a good hub for that. Is that still the case?
We would like to. I know one of the things that we do want to do is we want to at least get a construction and demolition, so a C&D processing facility. That is a lot of that material is going into the landfill right now, and we'd like to have a processing facility for C&D, and we feel like that can really help increase diversion numbers for Deschutes County. In the bigger picture, it would be great to have a processing facility here in the eastern region. That's a big one, and quite a few years out if we make that happen. But yes,
and
we agree.
Millions and millions of dollars.
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
the investment on that.
Yeah.
Are those, just a personal question, are those facilities, those are private companies, right? They're businesses?
They could be, or both ways.
Republic Waste Management. They seem to be acquiring a lot of them, but up in the Portland, you got Pioneer, you got what's the other Pioneer,
Yes.
and then
EFI is another one. Far West Recycling.
Far West Fibers.
There's a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Services that was just purchased. Yeah, there's a lot of them out there right now.
Yeah.
And there is a C&D MRF in Marion County, and that is it's helped supported by both the county and the 8 haulers that are part of the hauler association there. So there are very innovative ways to look at it, but it is always that investment in capital and the machinery, and with C&D MRFs, especially fire safety and suppression.
I just want to say, everybody who's commenting, you guys are fantastic. I mean, these questions are, we could go on forever, but they're great. They really are. And we're here to help as much as we possibly can with that. And then just link everything to Covey, and Covey knows how to track us down.
Yes.
So, can I answer Brandon's question? So, Brandon, that was actually
last question.
Yeah, that was actually on my to-do list today, because there is, from the CRPFs, they will let us know like what product is, where it's going, and what it's being turned into. And I was not able to get that information secured for this meeting, but I think Covey, that would be really awesome if I can get that at a later time. Maybe you can include that in some messaging, or even
in your
Susan.
newsletter. Yeah, in one of these newsletters.
If we could do that, that would be that would be great to be able to do that. Most of the metal, I can say though, most of the metal is made into rebar. I believe it's up in Portland. That's what most of the metal goes into is rebar.
And just to be cognizant for the recording for people who are not here, the question that Brendan asked was, would
Oh,
it be
yes.
cool to have a list of the manufacturers that utilize recycled materials like Nextrex that we could prefer to buy from? So yeah, thank you for answering that too, Colin. So we're definitely way above time. I just want to give a thanks to two groups of people. I want to really give a thanks to the panelists. Thank you so much for taking time on a Tuesday evening and sticking around at this point, 17 minutes longer. So thank you. And I also want to give a thanks to everyone who stayed around and watched this for much longer than we advertised as well. So thank you. And you really did ask a lot of good questions. What we'll do, just like last year, is we'll share this recording and we'll also try and do a write-up of all this. So people who just want to like look at answers on the list can just go through and find that. And then we'll have that as a resource that we'll share through our newsletter. And then if any of you who are still there didn't get your question answered, you can still reach out to me and I can be the bridge. And if I don't know, I'll reach out to our panelists. So I just want to say thank you again. I think that's all I have. Any last things on the panelist side?
Oh,
Thank you all for being here
thank you.
and your efforts.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Great
Appreciate all you're
questions.
doing. One person can make a difference. Remember that. So we all do our part.
And
Have a
I'm going to
good
shout out to the grant winners for the reusable serviceware. It's grant
Woo.
winners, so yay.
Yeah. Yeah.
you.
Good job, Environmental Center. Yeah. Really
Thank
good.
you. And I want to give a last shout out to Naomi for handling all the
Woohoo.
moderating and the
Yay.
comments. So thank you for that. All right.
Thanks,
Have a good
Cubby.
night, everybody.
Thanks,
Thank you
everybody.
guys.
Bye.